Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, today I want to preface what I'll be talking about. Kind of follows up really well after Carol's presentation. She's talking about getting more youth in amateur radio. And today my presentation is more on the side of what I have done in my amateur radio career and how that has brought, not only has brought me further into the world of amateur radio, but has also brought others into amateur radio. And so, yes. So yes, I'm Audrey McElroy. I was licensed in 2014. Amateur radio has been part of my life for a long time. I'm the recipient of the first 2021 Young Achievers Scholarship from RCA, which I'm very grateful for, and was also given the Young Ham of the Year award this year. I'm a first-year computer engineering student at Georgia Tech, which is difficult to say the least, but it's a lot of fun. And it seems like sometimes, though I was a student at Georgia Tech for almost all my life, my parents were very set on me going to Georgia Tech, and I can't say I wasn't against it. I love Georgia Tech. I've been going down there for many years. In fact, the very first time I came to Georgia Tech was to see someone named Joe Taylor speak. Who knows who Joe Taylor is? Yeah, he won JT. He's a great guy. And funny enough, the same room he presented in is the same room I have some of my ECE classes in today. He spoke about Whisper, which is also quite ironic because some of the high altitude balloons I use Whisper, and we'll get into that later. But I got to meet him, and it was a big deal for me. My mom asked me the other day if I remember anything he said to me, and I said no, but it was probably some top secret stuff about his Nobel Prize winning pulsar research. So yes, so now I'm at Georgia Tech. That's me in the W4AQL radio station, which I think is the best station in the world. We have won many radio contests, and we're one of the oldest radio clubs in the country. On the left there, that's us climbing up around the roof, because sometimes things break and sometimes you have to go up there and just hobble around on the roof, which I'm sure somebody in some administration at Georgia Tech does not like, but we do it anyways because we're ham radio operators. There's no other way to do it. So some of you might know in the past few years, I've become, like I said, involved in high altitude balloons, and I've had the opportunity to speak at many different conventions and things like that. And it's been a whirlwind, to say the least. I'm so grateful for all the opportunities I get, and I'm so grateful for all the people I get to meet doing that. But today I want to talk about how that all happened and who helped me along the way, and most importantly, how we can get more youth into amateur radio. Because today that's difficult to do. You approach kids and you bring up amateur radio and they don't seem that into it, to be honest. And I've seen that happen in real life, but the way I believe that I've been approaching bringing more youth in amateur radio with high altitude balloons has been, I think, more engaging for them. Same thing goes for satellites and things like that. So talking about how I got started in amateur radio, because I feel like that's how we can encourage others. I started out very young. My dad had me running cables and coax in the Georgia heat when I was like 5. So yeah, you know, the other day my dad was like, it's amazing you got into computer engineering and RF and all that. And I'm like, well, I kind of had to like it because some days it was tough. But so yeah, I've been involved for many years. And so my parents, of course, helped me, but I also want to mention that no youth can fall in love with amateur radio without the help of others. It's very difficult to. And so I was very fortunate enough to have parents who were invested in this and very supportive of this, but there are those who don't have that. And that's why I always want to recognize people like Bill Brown and Carol Perry, of course, which, can we give her another round of applause, please? She is the most amazing person, I believe. Yes, her and Bill Brown, as she mentioned before, is a mentor at NASA who has been helping me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. He has been so patient and so helpful with me. And of course, the Amateur Radio Club, or the Radio Club of America, for supporting me with my education, and the ARRL as well, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think any youth would be in amateur radio as much as they are. Because of them, I've been able to progress my high altitude balloon career over the past 3 years tremendously. As you can see on the left, that was the first balloon I ever launched. Now, if you look really closely in the background, you'd say, Audrey, those power lines are really close to your balloon. I'd say yes, that's true. That was my first launch and I was a little concerned, but it went okay somehow. But I've been able to go from balloons like that to the balloons you see on the right. Through the help of Bill Brown, I've been able to learn a lot more about what I need to be doing with my balloons, changing from APRS using Whisper now and other things like that. And I've been able to learn a lot more. But most importantly, because of them, I've been able to carry on what they've been doing and help others. So the past couple years, I've been going to, this is a local elementary school in my county, and I went to go speak to them about how to do balloons. And I was, going through my presentation, and I had my little handy HT, and I was like, I wonder if any one of them want to talk on the repeater. And so I'm like, who wants to talk on the radio? And everybody raised their hands. They're like, I want to talk, I want to talk. They all lined up, and it was amazing. They all were so engaged. And I even had them, as the teacher was leading them out of the room, a few of them ran back to me and they're like, can we talk on the radio, please? And so that was wonderful. I also had the opportunity to talk to another group of students at another elementary school. This one actually had a live balloon demonstration. And so that was a lot of fun. And so I really want to carry on what those who've given me inspiration, I want to give that inspiration to others, because I feel like that's the most important thing. We can sit down and we can show kids how to contest on the radio, and we can put them in front of a radio and tell them to talk to people. But unless they find some sort of personal joy in it, it's not going to stick. And so going and doing all these things, what I've found is that you have to find something that interests them at that age. You have to find like balloons. Like what third grader doesn't love a balloon? So they found it all interesting and they were all on it. And so that was great. And you can see some other examples of people I've worked with over the past few years. This is the Manila Girl Scouts group in the Philippines. If you haven't heard of them, I would look them up. They are one of the best organizations in the world, I believe. They are a group, all Girl Scouts, all involved in the amateur radio. And they are a tight-knit family, and they are so talented. And I've worked with them, and they are hoping to launch a few balloons. So I am working with them on that. But they are amazing. Also, if you've ever heard of Youth on the Air, anyone ever heard of Yoda Youth on the Air at any point? Yes, so Youth on the Air is a great organization. Neil Rapp currently runs it, who was one of the recipients of Carol Perry's Teaching Award. They have a monthly or a yearly summer camp where they bring youth from all over North America and South America and connect them with all different aspects of amateur radio. So this year they had satellites, they had HABs, they had contesting, they had everything. This is a great picture of them. If you can kind of tell, the tall guy in front of the Youth on the Air sign is my little brother, Jack. I was at Georgia Tech while this was happening, so I could not attend. I was struggling over Diffie Qs. So this is a launch of one of the HABs, and they found it to also be a lot of fun. And so I'm looking at this, and people are asking me, I've had people ask me, how do I get my kid in amateur radio? How do I get my nephew in amateur radio? How do I get my grandson in amateur radio? And I say, involve them in stuff like this. Get other kids, find stuff they find interesting, get them all working together, and they'll have fun, and it'll stick with them. Another aspect that I've been kind of working on is product awareness. And so like this goes off the HABs I just discussed. If you find something interesting with youth, you get them involved in it and get them presenting about it. Getting into specifically some of the projects I've been working on, that is one of the sky trackers. That's what I use to go on some of my balloons. It uses Whisper, which is pretty ironic because it was almost 12 years ago today I met Joe Taylor. So that's us holding a balloon. And I don't know if any of you guys heard my presentation from last year, but the most notable balloon I had went about 4.5 times around the world using Whisper. 20-meter Whisper, it transmitted for almost a month. I like to tell a funny story of it was transmitting, it was doing fine. As you could tell, I don't know if you could see, but there are solar panels on it. So of course it's not gonna be transmitting at night. But what was interesting is that it disappeared suddenly over China in the middle of the day. So I like to think about what happened. I don't really know for sure. We'll never know, but I like to joke and say my name is on a watch list somewhere. It probably is. And that's okay. Because you're not having fun if you're not on a watch list. All right. Since then, Carol Perry touched on this just a little bit. My brother presented on this a little bit in Dayton. I'll go into a little more depth on it because it was mainly my experiment, and I would have been there to present, but I had to graduate high school, so minor details. But so yeah, the most recent one I did was in March. The study of the effects of high altitude conditions on the life cycle, size, and myo3 transcription of C. elegans. Basically saying, how did the high altitude balloon affect worms? Really small worms. As you can see on the right, those worms are about 1 millimeter long. They're very, very tiny. And so the setup of this was a lot of work because I was like, well, how am I going to assemble this? How am I going to put a live biological sample in this and get this to work? Because in the past I'd done launches and this was a whole other thing. So of course I had many ways to track this balloon because in my experience, you never rely on just APRS because APRS will always somehow fail at 10,000 feet above the ground. And then if you want to guess where 10,000 feet you can drift with the parachute to, I mean, that's a lot of work. But using APRS tracking, audio tracking, meaning it was just a really loud beeper, 2 70-centimeter beacons. And then I also had a way to calculate and gather some telemetry on the way. This is what the setup of that kind of looked like with the nematodes. My teacher thought I was crazy doing this, by the way. He was a biology teacher. And I showed him the setup and he thought they were all going to die. And that's what everybody told me was going to happen. And I just kind of expected that to happen. But, you know, spoiler, they didn't die. But this is what the whole setup kind of looks like all together. So we have our parachute, our 2 beacons, our flight sensors, the sample, and the camera, and the spot trace, which I recommend if you're anyone doing high altitude balloons, get a spot trace GPS tracker, just in case. And I'll tell you why here. We got everything launched. We got everything ready to go. It went off. It launched great. It went for about 2.5 hours. And then suddenly it went dark at about 3,000 feet above the ground, which is not fun. So I'm like, well, where are these worms going to end up? So it ended up being that APRS just stopped transmitting about there. I guess we lost connection with an iGate and ended up landing, of course, in the most odd places, because that's always where all the balloons end up landing for me. Of course, in the Ogeechee peanut field over there. And so that was fun. I did have to climb that fence to get it. And so that was a lot of work, but it was quite exciting. And I was ignoring all the no trespassing signs everywhere. It was a little scary, but it was recovered. And like I said, the worms did survive, which was a lot of fun. I got to bring them back and I studied them for about 3 weeks afterwards and found a slight increase in reproduction rate in the worms, a little bit significant. And so I thought that was really funny. I'm actually surprised any of them survived at all. We can look at some of the data we gathered during this flight. You can see the temperature dropped drastically. So once again, I'm surprised they survived that. I'm surprised that the media that the worms were sitting on survived that as well. And of course, we have our air pressure. This is the nicest graph I've ever gotten, by the way, from any experiment. It's so nice. I'm very proud of this graph. But once again, it shows you that the air pressure, it was almost nothing. So once again, surprised that they survived. So that was that experiment. Something that's happening right now, if you guys are interested, is one of my balloons is being launched from Antarctica tomorrow. If any of you guys want to go, it should be on Whisper. It should be listed, I think, as K4UAH-7 or under KM4ZIA. It'll be up there. And so we're hoping that goes well. They launched a test balloon about a week ago and it disappeared off the coast. So hopefully this one does not disappear. So I know my presentation wasn't super duper technical, but I just wanted to cover a little bit about my amateur background and all of that. So plans for the future, people ask me, is that like I said, I'm a first year computer engineering student at Tech. So I plan to finish that out. I want to continue the activities and the involvement I've had with youth. That's very important to me, whether it be going to elementary schools or doing Zoom calls with them. I very much look forward to that. And I look forward to going into a career in the next 5 years, hopefully, that somehow involves my love with RF and maybe cybersecurity and maybe satellites. And I'm not really sure at this point, but I know it's going to be something involving RF that I love. So yes.
Anyone or online? Are there any comments, questions? Yes, okay.
For the Antarctica. Yeah, one of them is being launched tomorrow. The call sign for the Whisper balloon is K4UAH-7. Uniform Alpha, yeah. That should be the call. If it's not that, it's KM4ZIA. Zulu India Alpha. Yes. Not sure which call they have it under. I'm not sure which call they have it under. So yes. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Or concerns.
Or sure.
I honestly would not mind. That's okay. Thank you.